On Thursday, Jeff Gorton got in front of the media and said, quote, "We are not going to do anything that's stupid." And the second he walked away, the Noah Dobson rumors started. Is that stupid? We'll talk about that today on Locked On Canadiens.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 1340 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast, doing that supports us here on the show and ensures you do not miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as that. Maybe it's Ian. I am joined, as I always am, by Laura Saba, also known as the actor Stick. And there's a third person in the frame if you're watching on YouTube, a guy that you probably recognize, someone who needs no introduction. But it is Scott Matla, Scoot Mortla, Scoots McGee has rejoined us for our draft eve episode, which I think we had hoped to talk about some draft things today, but then too much stuff has happened that may or may not end up happening. So we want to start there. Scott, how are we doing today?
I'm good. The thing is, I'm pretty sure I just invited myself. I meant to do this like 2 weeks ago or 2 or 3 weeks ago when the Rocket season actually ended. And then turns out work gets pretty busy in the summertime when you finally have a summer to go with. So we're Rocket debriefing the day before the NHL draft, which also snuck up on me because like they handed out the Stanley Cup a week ago. And I was like, cool. Oh, the draft is in a week and I've done zero preparation for everything. But now that I don't host a podcast every day, I can just play expert online because I bought the Elite Prospects Guide and can read that instead.
Hey, I host a podcast and that's what I'm doing. So look, we have Scott here for a very specific purpose. We want to debrief the Laval Rocket season. One of that was, took that team to new heights, but ultimately, I think we all left kind of disappointed with how that ended. So we'll break down the Laval Rocket season now that dust is settled. We have a Rumour Roundup today. Noah Dobson and Montreal are being linked pretty heavily. We'll go through all of that noise and figure out whether or not it is noise or if there's smoke, there's fire. And then it's our mailbag. We have some questions like, who are UFAs to avoid? Elias Pettersson may be in Montreal. So we'll talk about some stuff there. You guys never disappoint with the mailbag. So let's jump into it. Laval Rocket debrief. The most successful season in this team's history since coming to Laval. It was a fun ride. The team was really fun at most times this season, frustrating at others, but find me a hockey team that isn't. Now that the dust has settled, Scott, like where are you at on this season for the Laval Rocket? Has the time in between their elimination and now given you different perspective on what you saw?
My thought on this season is still the same, is that they were incredible this season. They were a dominant regular season force. They were pretty damn good through 2 playoff rounds, and then a lack of experience in parts of the team and some injuries and just hockey bull crap, to put it as politically correctly as possible, just kind of combined all at the worst time. Like they were very good. And this was a team that entered last off season, missed the playoffs. Jean-Francois Hull was coming back. And then midway through the summer was like, oh, I'm going to coach in the NCAA closer to home, closer to my kids at Clarkson. And the Rocket had to kind of scramble to find a coach. And they hired Pascal Vincent, who had just been fired by Columbus after a disastrous NHL season. And I don't think calling it that is anywhere is selling that, too short at all. And my thought was, okay, he's had solid teams. And then they came and put together just an incredibly strong regular season for the team here. I'm actually trying to look up the standings here because I am out of practice and didn't have this pulled up ahead of time, but they were the top team in the league. They went 48-19-5, 101 points, won the McGregor Kilpatrick Trophy, the top team in the AHL, by 5 points over the Hershey Bears. They were incredible. They rarely lost more than 2 games in a row this season, and they did it with a roster that had a lot of youth to it and a lot of question marks going into it. They did it Without Caden Primo at the start of the year, he was there the back half of the year, but a lot of question marks all over that. They were probably a playoff team, but I don't think anyone expected them to be as good as they were. No matter what, even with the way things ended, looking at this season as anything but an incredible success is selling this team really, really short right now.
So what do you attribute it to, Scott? Like, what do you think the factors are? You mentioned it, but this was a young team. You mentioned it was a bit surprising. Do you think it's all coaching? Do you think it's talent? Like, what do you think is the cause for them to have such a successful season?
I think it's a nice mix of everything here. They went out and they got a lot of strong AHL like tweener talent. Alex Barré-Boulet is like adding Connor McDavid for the AHL to put it in hindsight. He's a very, very good player. 63 points in 64 games, led the team this year with some NHL time there, some injuries, and kind of a slower season. Laurent Dauphin had 56 points in 63 games. He's back next year on an AHL only contract. They had guys like Tyler Wotherspoon. They're not a big point generator, but they are a veteran leader, a guy that is expected to potentially even be back this year, that balanced out a lot of their youth. Their defense was Logan Mailloux, William Trudeau, Adam Engstrom, Wotherspoon. You had Noel Hoffenmeyer who came in. You had David Reinbach who had to overcome that devastating knee injury. You had Josh Jacobs for a little bit before he blew out his knee. And then Zach Hayes, who we expected to kind of be an ECHL depth guy, played, regular pairing minutes here. This team had depth all over. So when a guy like a Riley Kidney wasn't really cutting it somewhere else, other players stepped up in that role. Jared Davidson took a huge step forward this year, finished with 24 goals. Sean Farrell had an incredible I can only call it a second half of the season. He was non-existent the first half and then still finished with 44 points in 67 games, 10 points in 13 playoff games. The team had depth, and Pascal Vincent didn't mess with what worked. That top line of Alex Barré-Boulet, Laurent Dauphin, and Sean Farrell stuck together unless someone was injured. He got Florian Jack-Eye in spot with players that he was used to playing with. Everything just kind of clicked into place, and then they were doing pretty well goaltending-wise with Connor Hughes and Jakob Dobish, and then they sent Caden Primo down to the AHL, which I know consternation, everything that he wasn't very good at the NHL level, but he went 21, 2, and technically 3 because they consider that they have ties on here for some reason, which I'm pretty sure is overtime losses, with a 927 save percentage and a 196 goals against. Caden Primo was lights out. They added in Connor Hughes, played some of those games. He got hurt. Jacob Fowler joined the team for 3 games, went 2-1, 914 save percentage. Everything just got balanced out really well with this team here. It's hard to not look at how Pascal Vincent balanced. I need to develop these players, but I also need to win these games. The lines weren't always 1 through 4. They had nights where the fourth line was playing every other shift. They had some nights where it feels like the first line never got off the ice. Every game was treated as an individual event and not everything. And that allowed them to really find their success and their rhythm very quickly this season. Pascal Vincent really got the most out of these guys and seemed to have unlocked a little bit here for some of these players that maybe we weren't expecting too much of.
Really quick before we head into our next segment, how likely is it that this Laval team is back to the same level of play next year? Like, can we expect them to repeat in any meaningful sense? Because the Canadiens are taking that next step. You have to imagine they're going to be raiding those cupboards and getting some of those young guys up or trading them for NHL help now. Like, is Laval going to be hampered by the potential success of the Montreal Canadiens?
Yes and no, because I look at the Canadiens lineup and the spots that they need filling. I don't know if the Rocket fully have the guys for those spots right now. I think Owen Beck can be one of those guys that might be up there. I think Florian Jack-Eye and Jared Davidson are going to be one of those guys competing up there. But for the most part, the defense looks pretty well set to return the way that it was. Even if David Reinbacher goes to the NHL, they had David Reinbacher for all of 10 regular season games and then the playoffs this year. That's kind of how they were last year. And based on how well the Rocket played and I program like they're, the NCAA here, but opposing players talk about what a privilege it is to get to play there, that the crowds are electric, the facilities are amazing. a lot of these players, it's a destination to play at. There's no palm trees in Laval, but players still want to go there at the AHL level. So even if they lose some of these guys, Brandon Gignac has already signed overseas. Connor Hughes has signed overseas. Noel Hoffenmeyer is going overseas. I have no doubt that they will find pieces to potentially replace some of those guys. Like Hayden Primo, probably not going to be the AHL goaltender next year, but Jacob Fowler's already come in and proven he can do that. And now they just need to find a slightly older player to be his mentor for that season. And they can do that. They have the time, they have the money, they have their own GM that Kent Hughes can focus on the NHL and John Sedgwick can focus on the Rocket. This is, I think, 2 years on from separating those two roles, and the dividends are paying off. I don't know if they will be the top team in the AHL next year, but I would expect this to be a playoff team next year, barring any chaotic nonsense injuries, whatnot with that.
Yeah, it's funny. We're talking about Laval and Buffalo still catching strays with that palm trees remark. I think we've talked about Buffalo on this podcast this week as much as Montreal. All right, we have to leave the Laval Rocket there. When we come back, buckle up. It's Rumour Roundup. It's a big one. Noah Dobson potentially landing in Montreal. We'll cover that when we get back on Locked On Canadiens. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes all of that possible. And it makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for exciting MLB game action. Game Time has last-minute tickets and zone deals for big matchups and big savings, like 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matchups. Seat views are right in the app before you buy, so you know exactly where you'll be. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, we are back, and I have a new hat to show everyone. This is the big one. We are breaking out the big cowboy hat for Rumour Roundup, the largest yeehaws yet, and I feel it is only fair that it's happening with Scott here. However, on YouTube, this will not play the way that we kind of hoped because we are now all in smaller boxes.
Oh, so we can just give you the solo screen for a second so everyone can see it once you've put it on.
Yeah,
all right.
You want to give that a shot here?
Yes, absolutely.
There it is. Even now I have to crouch to throw that on. So look, it's the big one, guys. I know I said I'd break it out for Crosby, but I feel like Noah Dobson is just as great. And Scott has thrown on his luchador mask. We are cowboys and luchadors right now. Things are great for the Montreal Canadiens. In talking about, this just looks like I have a giant red wedge on my head. Anyway, we need to talk about the Noah Dobson rumor. So according to Kevin Dubé of Journal de Quebec, Habs have made a formal offer to the Islanders for Noah Dobson. He wants north of $10 million per season on his next contract, according to Andy Strickland. Dobson has Montreal at or near the top of his list of destinations, according to Anthony Martineau of TVA. All right, how do we feel? Like Laura, I'll start with you on this one. Is Noah Dobson
what does a formal offer mean? What does a formal offer mean? Did they call the Islanders and say, "I'll give you like Logan Mailloux for him," right? Or is it here's some things we can talk about? Like here are some things
they took it out of the group chat. That's what happened. They took it out of the group chat, and now they're in private DMs, sending trade. You know what they're doing? Actually, they go on Puckpedia and they put together those trade offers there, and they just email links. That's what they do. Scott, where are you at on Noah Dobson as a player Montreal could acquire?
I think he's phenomenal, and I think he would immediately put this team fully into the next stage of what is going on here. I think that he was not that far removed from having a huge season on the blue line, playing on, and I say this with respect to Gil of Locked On Islanders and Dan Saraceni from Lighthouse Hockey, an offensively anemic New York
Sure.
Islanders
They've been like this
franchise.
for years.
I wrote his draft profile years ago when I was at Eyes on the Prize writing these things, and I look at him and I go, he's a big defenseman. He's 6'4". He's 25 years old. He had 39 points in 71 games this year, but also the Islanders were abysmal. He had 60 assists last year. He had 49 points before that, 51 points before that. He's gotten better. Just the Islanders were, for the lack of a better term, crap this past year. And I think that he is someone who absolutely, if the price is right, I know, same with everything really, he's absolutely somebody that if the Canadiens added them would be a huge boost for that. He's your number 2 power play option. Lane Hutson's not going off power play 1, but you can have a Gooley Dobson pairing and just forget about it for the next, 5 to 6 years, however long that deal might be for, because he is, I believe, out of contract right now.
Yes,
or
he's a restricted free agent. He's in need of a contract. Let's talk about the dollar amount on this contract, because Andy Strickland had, and most people have had this, that he wants north of $10 million per season at his next contract. And I know a lot of people are getting sticker shock about that.
Can we just say one thing though?
Yeah, sure.
Like, this is what the player asked for. This is not what the team has offered.
It's a great point.
Right? Okay, this is the starting point. He said I want to start the discussion at 10 point something, at 11 million, whatever it is.
Yeah, so it's a good point. Negotiations, you meet somewhere other than where the player initially asked, unless you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, in which you just draw it out for months and months and then just give them whatever. I wanted to talk about, this in terms of the salary cap increasing, because I think people look at $10 million for Dobson and they go, "Ew, that's a little rich for my blood." And I agree with you in 24-25 terms, because the salary cap last year was $88 million. That would have been 11.3% of the cap. But by the time whatever the third year of his deal costs, which would be 27-28, let's say it's $10 million. That is 8.8% of the cap in 27-28. That is equivalent to what now would be a $7.74 million contract. So like that, and that is ranked 26th highest cap hit among defensemen last year. He would have fit right in between Jared Spurgeon and Dmitry Orlov. Now you look at me and you tell me that he's not worth that. We need to, and I said this about Jake Evans, in the fact that like strong utility players are going to have contracts that make you kind of lose your mind. We need to get comfortable with the fact that we are going to have sticker shock for the next few seasons until things kind of equalize. Some of those are going to be mistakes, but a lot of them are going to be within mind, knowing that 2 years from now, that's going to be a perfectly reasonable contract, if not a bargain. Because if it keeps going up, then we're approaching 8%, 7.5% of the salary cap. That is entirely doable for this player.
I absolutely agree. Sorry, Scott, you were going to say.
I'm Googling what's the cap space going up to. So it's going up to 95.5 million. It's expected to increase up to 104 million, which, I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it, kind of thing there. But $10 million becomes a totally different thing. It reminds me of when second line center started being signed for $5.5 million post one of the last lockouts. And everyone's like, you can't give Valtteri Filppula $4.5 million. That's first line center money. It's like, no, things have changed from this timeline.
Yeah.
$10 million. And like Laura said, that is his ask. Where the teams are, which Matthew Darche, I have no runway in which to judge him on right now, on how he is as a negotiator, how he is. Like, I don't know anything about him. He is that dude who played for the Habs once for me still. I could see that number coming down, and maybe there's some bonus money thrown in there or whatever. That's Jeff Molson's money. That's not cap space money on there. $10 million to potentially, shore up your blue line, where you have Caden Gooley signed long-term. You have Lane Hutson that's probably getting signed long-term on Monday, because that's July 1st. He's eligible for an extension. Then I wouldn't be shocked before the new CBA kicks in if they're like, Lane Hutson, here's 8 years before we can't do this anymore. And just locking all that down. If Noah Dobson is the one expenditure that's a little bit higher, and it's like, oh, it's more than Nick Suzuki, cool, when Suzuki's contract's up and he wants, $10 million a year, and $10 million is like $7.5 million now, you laugh all the way to whatever bank is around the corner from you and cash that check immediately. I'm not worried about him costing $10 million. And if a team wants to overpay for that, 10 is probably my hard cutoff point, just because the Canadiens do need cap space to make things work. Otherwise, getting Hudson signed as part of that. They've already burned a year off of Demidov's contract. He's going to probably be expensive. Kent Hughes likes to think ahead of time on these things. He bet on Slavkovsky breaking out. I would bet he does the same thing with these other two guys as well. I'm not worried about it, but if the asking price for Dobson is what I am curious about. Because I don't believe he was offered in that Peterka deal, unless he was, which if he was and the Sabres didn't take that.
I did
anyway,
see,
again,
I
still
did
catching
see
strays in
something.
Buffalo.
Yeah, I did see something, but I don't know if it was from a reputable source. But we can conclude that Buffalo really did fleece themselves on that trade.
I don't understand. All right, we have to do our yeehaws for this, Laura. I'll let you start us off. Entertainment-wise, how entertained are you by the Noah Dobson rumors?
20 out of 5.
Yeah, 1 billion out of infinity. Like, I love this a lot. Scott, realism. How realistic is this in yeehaws?
Man, put me on the spot. Like, I want to say this has got to be like 8 out of 10.
Can you believe the Canadiens want to do this?
I fully believe like this could be an 8 out of 10 kind of thing, just because it makes sense. It's right up Kent Hughes' alley for an RFA who maybe doesn't want to be in this spot anymore, and a rebuilding team that needs to stockpile futures and not currents or presents or whatever we want to call it. It all kind of lines up. I'd say this is at least an 8 out of 10. But this is, from an entertainment perspective, if this goes down, the draft is going to be very, very fun tomorrow when this trade gets announced. If this trade gets announced.
Yeah, very excited. All right, we'll leave Rumour Roundup there. The hat is off. The luchador mask is off. When we come back, it's a mailbag. You guys delivered, as you always do. We'll get into your questions when we come back on Locked On Canadiens. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, there were two main categories where I started to see some things I didn't expect. Takeout, although I should have expected that. Way too much money on takeout and way too much money on subscriptions I didn't know I had. Monarch Money helped me find those things and cut back on them and cancel some of those subscriptions that I didn't want anymore. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, we're back. We're headed into the weekend. We're headed into the draft. Enjoy the draft tonight, everyone. I'm very excited for it. I hope the Canadiens make a splash, as they often want to do and sometimes actually end up doing. So very excited to see that play out. But first, we have our mailbag. Our listeners always show up to let us know what they want us to talk about. So Laura, you want to take us down our first question here? Laura, you're on mute.
I did a whole bunch of stuff and then I forgot that. We've got Super Rain first. What do you think of Elias Pettersson as the number 2C? Trade him for Doc, Newhook, and the 2 first-rounders.
Scott, I'll let you take that first.
I love the idea of Elias Pettersson, but it's an expensive contract, to be very honest, for a guy who is not at his highest value at this point, unfortunately. And I'm trying to just look up his contract information right now, because I want to say he's getting paid $11 million a year, $11.6 million a year until 2032. So that's a spicy meatball. He is someone that I think has all the talent in the world. He's an incredible playmaker. I think he's an incredible shooter. He's not that far removed from being over a point per game player on the Canucks, who are, speaking of teams where I don't know what anybody is doing there whatsoever. I love the idea of it, but this is a player that has been publicly unhappy with the team, with former teammates. and now you're going to trade 2 potential centers and 2 first-round picks for someone who you don't know where they are at right now.
Yeah.
In that, if it was Doc and maybe the firsts, sure, but adding all that together, you're stripping out some of the strength in the team here and having some flexibility. And then also adding in a bunch more cap space that if they are in on Dobson, you have competing trades for this then. And I'd rather take Dobson than Pettersson if that was offered the opportunity. Also, putting Pettersson and Mike Matheson on the same team would be a trial in, hey, how much do players remember about guys they've played against? Because when Pettersson came to the league, Mike Matheson basically rock bottomed Elias Pettersson and knocked him unconscious when he was playing for Florida. So,
wow. I forgot about that. Well, I mean, Sam Bennett and Brad Marchand are best friends, so I imagine anything's possible.
Well, that's the CTE, but you know.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. I want to do this one from Andy, Laura, because I do have it in our rundown on the right side here. Forget this is at Rally Cap on Blue Sky. Andy, forget the free agents you want. Tell us the free agents you desperately want to avoid. I didn't really have one until today when the Sharks decided to buy out Marc-Edouard Vlasic. That seems like Montreal, like old versions of the Canadiens would fall over themselves to get this guy. I'm so good. It's older, marginally better. David Savard, like I'm totally, and he's left-handed. Like it doesn't even fit. No. So for me, the mistake would be minimal, but I don't want it. Laura, do you have an answer to this one?
I have 2. I have Cody Ceci because he's not a good defenseman, and I have Tony DeAngelo because he is not a good person.
Yeah. Tony, I don't know why teams keep giving that guy a chance, huh? Like it's just everywhere he goes, it's the same story. Yes, both valid answers. Scott, do you have one in the chamber?
For me, my big one is Ivan Provorov. I don't think this team
another
needs...
great one.
I don't think I asked Jay Foster about this. Just I'm like, what side does he play on? He goes, he's on the left. And I'm like, good, less that I have to worry about. On the outside of that, Andrei Kuzmenko and not Corey Perry, but Vladislav Gavrikov is apparently attracting a ton of attention that the Rangers want to give him.
That have been attached to Gavrikov are making me sick to my stomach. I know I just talked about sticker shock. That one, that's the mistake I was talking about. It's not Dobson getting 10. It's that guy getting 8.
Yes.
That's the mistake.
It blows my mind that the Rangers are like, they're rumored to want to give 7 years to this guy. And all I can think is, why?
Yeah.
Why would you do this? On the opposite side of that, I would love Dante Fabro. I wanted him last year when he was on waivers. I think I would like him again this year too, but that was not Andy's question. So
yes, it's true. But that is an exciting player that I also wanted when he went on waivers last year. Laura, I think we have time for one more.
I want to do a couple. I know we're running out of time, but I want to do a couple quick ones. The first one is, out of all the hosts, past and present, who's the best twerker? My money is on Scoots Magoo. This comes from Boondoggle. I'm going to go ahead and claim that. I'm absolutely out of the 3 of us. I'm definitely the best twerker.
We are. Yeah, that's not really a competition there.
That's not a competition.
I have negative twerking skills. So
not
built for it.
Ian, do you have a special draft hat?
I'm sure I could find one.
Jeff the Red wants to know. So
yeah, no, I saw the question. I don't. Yeah. I mean, when I was watching the draft where the Canadiens ended up taking Cole Caulfield, I was wearing my barber pole. So now most drafts I wear the barber pole jersey because I've considered it to be my lucky draft jersey. So I will be wearing my barber pole jersey, sitting on my couch in the sweltering heat on the East Coast, and hoping I don't pass out from heat stroke until picks 16 and 17.
Okay. So I'm going to select draft related questions only. And then Amelia sent us an amazing question, which we will focus on next week. Randy Hansen wants to know, what one thing, if it happens at the draft tomorrow, will make you furious? And how awful do you think this decentralized draft will play on TV?
Oh, God, I didn't even think about how bad. One, and I'm going to, Ian, apologies that this is your show, but I'm doing this draft rant now because I don't have anywhere else to do this. The 2 options you have for the draft tomorrow are Sam Cosentino or John Butchergross and Kevin Weeks. And then Saturday you get NHL Network, where it's what if I just talk and miss everything for 6 hours?
Yeah, and the picks just like appear on the right side of the screen, and like they haven't talked about a draft pick in 3 days because they're like, oh, we have to talk about this guy who's on his farm in Saskatchewan. Like none of the day 2, the broadcast sucks. I've been to day 2 of the draft, but it was in Buffalo, and it's actually pretty cool. But like on TV, terrible product.
Absolutely.
They're going to start talking about the Olympic roster midway through round 2 when there's still actual players to be picked, respectfully to like the guys picked in the 5th and 6th round. But it's like, hey, here's B tier hockey analyst talking about the Olympic team and it's just like, it's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing that I think would make me furious, and maybe it's not even like a justifiable take, is if the Canadiens trade down. I would just hate that. Like they've flipped around in the air for months on these 2 picks, and then they just fall on their face at the end. They go, we're just gonna move back. We couldn't figure out what we wanted to do with these. That would make me so mad.
Yeah. So that answers half of the next question. Jeff the Red says, what would you be happy about giving up the 2 first rounders for, and what would make you wince? So we know the wince now, because me too. Like if they just,
unless they're getting like an RFA's rights, like someone
but
that
a
they
good
can
one.
sign. Yes, like with those picks.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be annoyed by it. I would if they want to move up, great, but like unless you're moving up inside the top 10, which I don't think 16 and 17 is going to get you inside the top 10 based on like the draft grade value thing, the scale for that. But I can't see them trading up for somebody unless someone really like has that weird fall outside that like first group there. Then I can see them like packaging their picks and something else to move up and make big splash in round 1. And then maybe, they just kind of coast the rest of the way after that.
I think for me, if they're going to give up the first 2 rounders, I want it to be either for a number 2C or a top 3 defenseman. That's it.
Yeah. And I think that's been difficult to find because nobody wants to do that, right? Like that's sort of what we've seen develop in the NHL over the last few months. Is it's a lot of teams, and Jeff Gordon mentioned it today. It's difficult to find that partner because everyone is trying to get better except for Pittsburgh, because and every article always says everyone's trying to get better except the Penguins, and I find that to be such a read. Like they're just really going after that team. I find it very funny. All right, do we want to leave that there and get into our trivia for today?
Yes, all the other questions that were asked that were not related about the draft, we will talk about them next week.
Yep, sounds good. All right, yesterday's question, we talked about Evander Kane being traded to the Vancouver Canucks for some reason. Speaking of Evander Kane, let's talk about the Thrashers. The player who scored the last goal for the Thrashers against Montreal was also the same player who scored the first Jets 2.0 goal against the Canadiens. Who was this player? I'll throw it over to Scott because he did end up getting it in our chat. He did guess a few, but he ended up getting it.
This took me a minute, and my first thought was I went with Andrew Ladd because it seemed like the most likely thing. Him or Blake Wheeler because they were Thrashers for a while, and then they were obviously Jets 2.0. I went to Alexander Burmistrov, and then it clicked, and I'm like, was Nick Antropov still a thing? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Kazakh national, Nick Antropov, baby.
Yeah, he scored the last goal as a Thrasher against the Montreal Canadiens on March 29th, 2011 in a 3-1 Canadiens win. And on October 9th, 2011, it was actually the first game back for the new Jets. Montreal got the first game against Winnipeg. He scored the only goal for the Jets in that game. It was a big moment, and then the Jets lost 5-1, which is very emblematic of those early stages, kind of for both Montreal and at the time and Winnipeg. They were both not very good then. Marc Couturier, Jacques Facepunch, and Super Rain all got the answer correct on that one. Scott actually has our trivia question today, so I'll throw it over to you, Scoot Mortla. What is our question for Friday?
So this is a draft related question, and this is because it popped up in my Instagram memories this week. In 2010 and 2014, a player was selected in each of these drafts at the same position, and they both have the same birthday. Who are these 2 players?
If you have the answer, if you somehow figured that out, put it in the comments down below this video or send it to us any way you know how, and we'll shout you out on the next episode of the show. Scott, before we start to throw things out, where can people find you in the work that you do?
You can find me on Blue Sky. You can find me at Habs Eyes on the Prize. We'll be cranking out draft content all this weekend. I do have a Substack, but I haven't written anything in like 2 months because I've been busy and tired and playing video games most of the other time. So, but with free agency and the draft and everything right here, Habs Eyes on the Prize and Blue Sky is the best way to find me, or you can find me Scort posting on Instagram. Figure that one out on your own.
Awesome. And that's going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports us here on the show and ensures you do not miss an episode. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no offseason, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most. With the local coverage you love from Locked On, you're going to want to be there for draft-related content. They'll have you covered. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We're also available on Amazon Fire TV. On your free Fire TV channels app, click the Montreal Canadiens logo in the hockey section. Watch all of our episodes there as well. We are Locked On Canadiens everywhere we're posting things. Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok. Come check us out. We'll have some extra content being posted across those channels for the Canadiens draft picks this weekend. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Actor Stick. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the draft, guys. We will see you on Monday.